作动SHIRO。
What's up, everybody? Okay, with the browser down. Okay, we're having technical difficulties again. Let me fix it real quick. How's everybody doing? SHIRO Show Friday. Dialing this as we go.
What's up, everybody?
We've got Dan Retrospectors with us. Last minute. Sat in, I think what I gave you, this is my new habit, is giving everybody like a half hour. You got a half hour. You got a green screen? Get on here with me.
Yeah, nice.
I mean, that speaks volumes of this community that we're able to get something together like that quick. This community is like, you know, tight. And I just sent Dan a message. I sent you a message like an hour ago maybe, and it was just like, well, I found out that I'm flying solo today. Do you have a green screen? You want to join me? And Dan was like, sure, why not? So awesome. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's good to be here. It's a nice place you got here.
Yeah,
Pretty
I
chill.
know, very spacious. Yeah, so what's up with you? Since you're on the show, you get to tell us about your updates. Any gaming updates or any Sega related stuff over there on the
I've
East
been
Coast?
playing some PSO Blue Burst on the Affinia private server. That's kind of what I've been doing.
Nice. I've not heard of that. Affinia private server. Is this like a newer server?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, ShitHack has been around for like over a decade. I think Affinia has only been around for like 5 years, maybe, or 6.
Oh, okay.
It's like the most popular PC
one.
private
Okay.
server, pretty much.
Cool. Nice. Well, I mean, I've been out of it for that long. I haven't played Blue Burst in over 5 years. So that explains why I've never heard of it. But no, that's cool. So does it work pretty well? There's a lot of people on there?
Oh yeah, there's like 150 people on at a time. There's
Wonderful.
so many people.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, well, definitely need to get my dream, or not my Dreamcast. I gotta get my PC on with Blue Burst.
Yeah.
Shouts to the 22 people that are in the chat. We've got Lucas, Christian, Paul Bort, Colin Pierce. Hey, David, Zany, how's it going? Kona Grit, Perkin, Martin Evans. Sorry, Jiggle 85, of course. Who am I missing? 8-bit SNK boy as usual, always here with us on the show. Thanks to everybody for joining us. Go ahead and like the show right now. Like it and share it if you can. That helps us a bunch. I know it gets old hearing it, but it bears repeating. It really helps us. And thanks for joining us for the show. Pat's still on the East Coast, and actually he's meeting up with Derek A-Team today, and he's also meeting up with Bob from Retro RGB. So that'll be fun for him. I was way out of the loop and didn't realize that he was going to miss 2 shows in a row, so that's on me. But we've got plenty of news to talk about, and shouts to Dan Thrax for writing up most of it on the website. So yeah, as for me, update-wise, working hard. It's summertime, so business is in full swing for like camps and stuff like that. I work at an art school, so what else? Playing some Streets of Rage 2 with Jesse the other day. That was a lot of fun on real hardware. So whoa, thanks Shadow Mask for the random $5. I will go buy myself a coffee so I can stay awake here because it's Friday and I'm slacking a little bit. Anyway, so yeah, what have you been up to, Danthrax?
I am eating dinner, as I often am during the show.
Yes.
Today, Salisbury steak with mixed vegetables. Not the fanciest dinner, but tasting nonetheless.
Nice. Okay, cool.
Sounds healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a busy week of Saturn news, so...
You have been writing a lot of articles and giving us a lot of updates.
I felt bad. I felt like I needed to make up for kind of being MIA the previous couple of weeks. Part of that was I was trying to wrap my head around the big PS4 Saturn Emulation story that I dropped today. So, yeah, that was a big one.
For sure. Yeah, I want to hear all about it. So did Bunny cook or did you?
Bunny set all this up.
Oh, nice.
I was upstairs trying to help Night Dragon figure out what some kanji characters were in, I think it was Walkenroder.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, instead
Cool.
of helping Mike with anything with.
So he's still working on that, eh? No, I know. It's great to
there's
hear
a
that.
rumor.
What, Anthony?
I said there's rumors.
Oh, there are rumors that it's being worked on. Okay, well, great. That's always good news. Yeah, so I don't really have a whole lot of updates, really. Except, let's see, today is my 16th wedding anniversary. So yeah, I've been married for 16 years. Yeah.
Wow, congrats.
Long time, right? And kids keep getting older. Yeah, no, it's crazy. But yeah, so we're gonna go out and do something later, but she's not home from work yet. Anyway, yeah, I'm gonna get right into the news. Actually, I'm gonna pull up the browser.
Shout out real quick that we have RJack in the chat too, and he is the developer for the English patch of JB Herald, which I wrote a story about this week too.
And we're gonna talk about. Awesome.
It was a very big incentive for me to actually make it this time.
Wonderful.
Nice.
Well, glad you could join us. And yeah, we'll get right into the news, and I'm looking forward to covering that. So let's see, where do we start? I guess with the first article that you wrote, Dan, was the one about Sonic Team leaving the door open for a new Knights of Burning Rangers. This is kind of like speculation, right? But they basically, based on something they said. So,
yeah, well, I mean, sort of. I mean, so the website Video Game Chronicle interviewed the head of Sonic Team, longtime Sega employee Takashi Iizuka, and the last question of the interview was, with Samba de Amigo and 2D Sonic making a return, what are the chances of Sonic Team's other franchises coming back to life, such as Nights into Dreams or Burning Rangers? And Iizuka replied, I can't say yes to anything right now. These days I'm the creative officer for Sonic the Hedgehog, so I'm totally focused on that side of the business. So I can't really speak for anyone else. But Sonic Team in Japan has been ramping up and hiring lots of people recently. They have more people than ever. So there may be some future where you'll be hearing about these kinds of titles. Now, okay, that's kind of a non-answer. At the end of the day, he did not say, Nights and Dreams and Burning Rangers totally coming back. At the same time, he absolutely had the opportunity there to shoot him down and say, no, we have no plans to bring those games back. You know, we're not interested in that. We're just focused on Sonic and Puyo Puyo. Mm-hmm. But he didn't. You know, he could have said no, and he didn't. So I think that's worth mentioning. And I was a little undecided whether to even write a story about it, because it is very close to being nothing.
Well, but other people wrote stories about it too, right? Like
that's what I was about to say. This actually got a lot of coverage from a lot of different sites, and seemed to be a pretty big point of conversation for people on Monday and a little bit into Tuesday. So I think it was a good decision in the end to get something out there, because it's fun to dream in the very least, right?
Absolutely. What do you think?
It's pretty amazing that we even got a sequel to Knights at all when you think about it.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, I didn't even see that coming when it came to the Wii. And I guess the Wii made a lot of sense because they were working on Air Knights, or they had the concept for Air Knights with a motion controller. Whoa. Mm-hmm. There's a really loud car. Anyway, so there was supposed to be this Air Knights controller, and that was supposed to be motion control, but the technology just wasn't there. So when the Wii came out, I guess it made sense because of the motion remote. But I mean, so here's my take on it. This is Sonic Team. So if they just said that they were hiring a bunch of people at Sega, it'd be harder to make any kind of speculation, right? Because it would just be Sega. I mean, it could be accounting people for all we know. But since they say they're ramping up hiring at Sonic Team specifically, that definitely hints that they've got a big project underway. Now, that said, Sonic Frontiers was Sonic Team, and that's a huge open world game, and it did relatively well. They probably want to follow it up. So I don't.
It's the best selling game since Sonic 2.
I'm sorry?
Sonic Frontiers is the best selling Sonic game since Sonic the Hedgehog 2 in 1990.
Exactly.
Extraordinarily well.
Yeah, it sold great, and so, I mean, I don't want to oversell it. It didn't sell as well as Breath of the Wild, but it did really good for a Sonic game, didn't it? And so, yeah, of course they're going to want to follow that up, and they're probably going to need a lot of staff to do it. That's, glass half empty. Glass half full, yeah, they might be, you know, putting together some side projects. And I would love to see it, you know. Definitely another Burning Rangers game would be amazing. I don't know. What would you prefer, Dan, if we could get one Sonic Team game?
I mean, I'd be really happy with Burning Rangers too, because wasn't the original idea of Burning Rangers for it to have online multiplayer?
Yeah.
So like, it'd be cool if they like made a sequel and added some sort of co-op online to it. I would love that.
Yeah, that would be great. Or maybe another, I don't know, they're probably not ready for another Fantasy Star, or sorry, Fantasy, they're probably not ready for another PSO game, right? They're still stuck on PSO 2?
Yeah. New Genesis, yeah.
Yeah, and that'll be running for a long time.
A completely different team works on New Genesis.
It's not Sonic Team anymore? It's not like a branch of Sonic Team?
No, PSO2 has been made by what used to be called Online R&D.
Oh, right,
Online
okay.
R&D.
Okay.
Who was it who was telling me in chat? Ted, I think, earlier this week, that in 2021, Sega kind of reshuffled their teams around a little bit, and they now, for their like internal Japanese non-Atlas teams, they have 4 divisions. They're just called Division 1, Division 2, Division 3, Division 4.
Mm-hmm.
Division 2 is essentially what was Sonic Team. But I mean, and so Division 1 is like the Ryoga Gotoku team. But it's all just kind of labels. They're all kind of like helping each other and shifting around to whatever project needs,
right?
You know, a particular employee's set of skills. Division 3 and 4, I think, are kind of focused on PSO2 and like their cell phone games, like the Hatsune Miku colorful tone game,
right?
Stuff like that. And they don't technically have an arcade development division anymore. All the arcade developers kind of got spread amongst the 4 divisions, so the 4 divisions could all kind of make an arcade game, and they do still make the occasional arcade game. So
right,
yeah, like anyway, sorry. At the end of the day, yeah, Sonic Team is just kind of a label. There's sort of not really a Sonic Team anymore, aside from like core guys who just always work on Sonic, like for example Takashi Iizuka here. And then they just kind of gather up all the developers they need when a project is getting spooled up. And, you know, for the next year or two, I guess you could say those people are Sonic Team because they're working on a Sonic game, or if they're working on a Puyo Puyo or whatever.
Right.
That's really just branding at this point. But yeah, PSO2 is made by different people than the people who worked on Sonic. I'm sure there was some overlap of people helping out on both, but for the most part, they're kind of separate initiatives.
Mm-hmm.
Like, in fact, before Phantasy Star PSO2 videos, like promo videos, they have like a little icon that pops up calling them Phantasy Star Crew. So that's kind of their label, their developer label.
I mean, the good thing is he is the creative officer for Sonic the Hedgehog. So, I mean, if he was talking directly about hiring for another Sonic game, you know, like Sonic Frontiers 2 or whatever, he would be able to speak directly about it, right? So the fact that he's leaving it kind of ambiguous does give you some room for, you know, there to be other potential projects, you know, in the works. So
yeah, this response kind of gives me fan diplomacy vibe answer, you know? It feels like he's just giving a diplomatic answer that, it's definitely possible. We don't have any plans, but...
I mean, what else can he do? He's under all sorts of NDAs, probably, you know? But I mean, this is, you know, this is the great pastime of Sega fans, is speculating, because you know, we have to hold on to hope that we're going to get some of these franchises again, you know? Unlike, you know...
I'm surprised no one has done that meme of the guy with the conspiracy theory, the poster board, but it says, Sonic fan explaining why Sonic Adventure 3 is imminent.
Right. Well,
there's been rumors of a new Jet Grind radio and a new Crazy Taxi for like a couple of years now.
Ooh.
And I mean, if they're really hiring more people, I mean, I would like to see either of those franchises return too.
Of course, you know, it's like leave it to the fans to make that happen, right? With like there was a Jet Grind like game. What was it? Bomb Funk, or what was it called?
Oh yeah. Bomb Rush Funk or something like that.
Bomb Rush Funk, yeah.
I'm not saying it right.
Of course, you got Bomb Rush Cyber Funk is what it is, yeah. And then of course you got the dude working on Overjump, which is kind of like, you know, spiritual remake, I guess, of Sega Rally. But yeah, no, I mean, Sega fans are crazy. Like they have to like take it into their own hands to make stuff, you know, if Sega's not going to do it.
Someone modded Jet Set Future and to have online multiplayer, and I think Sega like actually shut that down.
Oh, really?
Which kind of gives me a little bit of hope that maybe they did that because they're actually gonna make their own Jet Grind radio again.
They are. That leaked, like an actual screenshot of it leaked. They're absolutely making a new Jet Set radio.
Okay.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I've seen that too. Yeah, so I mean, we can hope, and definitely one of these, you know. But basically, another Knights game would be amazing. I just don't know, like, I don't know if they would try that with. It's not like they really need. It's not like they really need. His name is escaping me now, but he's in jail.
Yuji Naga.
It's not like they really need Yuji Naga. Yeah, I'm sorry. They've got Naoto Oshima, and they've got several other people that worked on the project. It's not like they really need Yuji Naka, because, you know, but again, you know, just because of his name is attached to the series and stuff, I don't know if they would touch it at this point. I'm not sure. That's the realistic side of me, kind of being a little pessimistic, but you know, I can always hope. But definitely a Burning Rangers 2 would be amazing. And like Dan said, if it was online and had multiplayer, that would be fantastic. Moving right along to Riglord Saga 2. This is one of Peter's best of Saturn. And so this is a game that, have any of you guys played this game? Have any of you attempted to play Riglord Saga 2? Have any of you, for that matter, attempted to play Mystaria or Blazing Heroes on the Saturn? Show of hands.
I can't say that I have. Okay.
So Mystaria, Blazing Heroes, we had two titles in the West because of the potential litigation with the Dungeons and Dragons company. Yeah. So anyway, they had to change it to Mystara, or so they had to change it to Blazing Heroes. But essentially, it's like it's this really neat little turn-based strategy RPG, very reminiscent of Shiny Force 3. And the graphics were a little jank. It was an early Saturn game. Graphics were a little jank, but the music was phenomenal. And the gameplay was very solid, even though you kind of have to use your imagination with a lot of these like pre-rendered characters and stuff, you know. Some folks might find it hard to go back to just because of how crude the graphics were, but other folks might find it charming. I highly recommend Mystaria, The Realms of Lore, or Blazing Heroes if you haven't played it. Recommend playing it. It's one of Sega Lord X's favorite games. And actually, I know quite a few people who love the game. Was somebody raising their hand? Was somebody trying to say something? Nope.
I was just kind of yes.
Yes. So, but they made a second one. It was good enough. I mean, it was actually did quite well in Japan, and they made a second game, Riglord Saga 2, which is on the top, close to the top of my list of games that I wish we could see translated. It's a phenomenal game. From the little bit that I've played, without really being able to understand what's going on, because I'm not fluent in Japanese. I basically know enough to get in trouble. But the graphics are improved, and just about everything is improved about the game. It's a Micro Cabin release, and Micro Cabin did some really cool stuff. They also did some stuff on the 3DO that was really similar. What was it? Guardian War, which was even more primitive looking. But I don't know. Since nobody else has played this game, all I can say is if you're listening to this and you need another RPG to try out, definitely give Mystara or Blazing Heroes a shot, because you can play that in English.
Noted.
Yeah, it's actually not that expensive a game too if you want to buy it.
That's actually what I was going to say earlier. I actually did have something I was thinking about saying, where I was going to say that my knowledge of Mystara / Blazing Heroes was, it was a game I was always considering picking up because it was one of the more affordable games to get for Saturn.
Certainly, yeah. And I mean, like, I think it's one of those games that people pass over because there's a lot of much better looking RPGs on the Saturn. I do think that it's kind of like virtual highlight type situation where it kind of looks like vomit in motion. You know, it's just really rough. But again, like, to some people, that's almost got a charm to it. So it really just depends. If you can get past that, there's so much to enjoy about this game. If you can get over the graphic part, and just kind of, you know, I guess put yourself in the mindset that this is like 1994, 95, and this is like cutting edge, and, you know, then you know, you might be able to get into it. But yeah, so the music is phenomenal in this game. Everything from like the very opening cutscene, and the story, the gameplay is phenomenal. Highly recommend it. I'm not kidding at all. It's a great game, and Riglord Saga 2 is definitely one that I hope we see translated in the future, because it's a phenomenal game, really. Moving right along, and I'll make it quick because I know we've got a ton of other stuff to talk about. Interview with Ken Lowe. So this is new old news. Essentially, years ago we got Ken Lowe on the show and did an interview about designing the Saturn logo, designing the boxes and packaging and promo for 32X and Sega CD. And he was just a young buck working at a agency, and this job dropped in his lap, and he got to do a bunch of Sega designs and stuff like that. So a lot of the imagery, a lot of the stuff that we know is from his hand. You know, like some of these classic ads, the "Mommy, what are those two doing?" ad, the, you know, head for say what?
I remember that ad, seeing that, and I didn't get it. I was so young at the time.
Oh right, yeah. You know, it's like two different audiences, right? Like taking it on face value, or, you know, the whole innuendo thing, which Sega loved to do. Bunch of ads.
Notice there's a beautiful naked woman in the background.
Exactly. I don't have it here, but he did that one as well with Barbara Moore. Yeah. So essentially that interview was packed. It was just crammed into a huge, like 3 or 4 I don't even know how many hours it was, SHIRO episode, and a lot of folks who have been listening to the cast for years haven't even heard this, you know, because it was kind of, we used to do a podcast and then also have like an interview and then also talk about an obscure game. And so it was like buried in there. So I've been just kind of extracting the interviews and uploading them as archive interviews so that more people could hear these stories, and hopefully potentially even use some of this information if they're doing, you know, video documentaries and whatnot. He gave us the logo and the font for Saturn. He gave us the head for Saturn ads, the campaigns. He gave us a couple of TV commercials, like the Alpha Sector commercial, where they're like in a military silo. He gave us, a lot of these classic Sega CD and 32X ads, and CDX. He worked on this logo for the Sega Underground, and that was kind of an interesting little piece of information, is that Sega was planning on having like an underground loyalty program, you know, basically something where it was just a tiny little logo, and you'd kind of have to be in the know, and if you were like a super loyal Saturn fan, or Sega fan, you'd sign up for this thing and you'd get some kind of reward perks. And of course Sony did that. They had the Underground, Sony what was it, the PlayStation Underground. And this was called the Sega Underground. So somebody was copying somebody. But he said he worked on this in like early 95. So I was looking at the timeline and I'm like, it's possible that when they like scrapped this, that maybe Sony caught wind and they like decided to do it. So yeah. But I mean, I wouldn't be surprised at all because Sony stole Steve Race, who was the marketing VP for Sega during their most successful years. So I wouldn't be surprised if Steve Race like already knew that was in the works and then like went ahead and did it for Sony. But yeah, so here are some examples of early Saturn logos that might have been, but weren't, because Sega was very insistent on having a logo with what he called dimensionality, I guess. Basically, it's a logo that looked kind of 3D, that it would communicate the message that this was a 3D console and that it was going to be able to push 3D. Yeah. So, what do you think about all this, Dan? Did you listen to the interview by any chance?
I think I did a while ago. Not recently, but
Yeah.
like probably like a year or so ago.
Sure, when you were like going through the podcast for the first time. Yeah. So I mean, this upload has met with a lot of great response from folks who are hearing it for the first time. I'm always amazed. I'm like, okay, I guess we're doing something right by re-uploading these, because a lot of people were
Remember
like, wow.
him saying that he said that Ice Cube was like a really nice guy.
Yeah, he said Ice Cube was a really nice guy, not at all what he was thinking he would be, like his persona.
Yeah.
You know? He does have the rings, the Head for Saturn rings. He said they're somewhere in his garage, and if he ever finds them, he'll send them to us. And I'm like, yeah, and I was just like, yeah, if you can find them. I mean, you know, if he happens to be moving or something like that and he finds them, you know, I'm going to hold him to that. But, you know, yeah, he's a really nice guy, and he lives up a few hours north of me in California, so I think somewhere near San Jose. But yeah, he's working for Apple, actually, so and has been actually for quite a bit of time. So, but yeah, so it was a great interview, and I highly recommend folks check it out if you haven't heard it yet. So, moving right along, next order of business is the long awaited, and it's still under work, but it's received a huge update. That's the patch for Blue Chicago Blues. And yes. Dan, I'll let you take this away since you wrote this up with RJack.
Okay.
You guys can go ahead and take it away.
Okay. So I apologize for not writing this story sooner. I meant to. RJack released an update back on May 31st, a whole month ago, to his English patch he's been working on since October for the adventure game, JB Harold Blue Chicago Blues. He entered the translated prologue into the Sega Extreme game competition last December, and then
translations category, but everyone had nothing bad to say. They just said they wanted more, so that makes me very curious if things go better this coming year.
People do seem to be responding to it. I mean, just today I tweeted out yesterday, a link to the story I wrote on SHIRO, and somebody today said, wow, this English patch for Blue Chicago Blues is awesome. Thanks for all your efforts, Dan. And I'm like, whoa, hold on. I had nothing to do with it.
I saw that.
Yeah. I was like, RJack and Dura Lumen is your translator. They're the ones who deserve the thanks. So, but it's cool that, somebody was like so excited about it,
Yeah, Duralumin has really been the MVP of this project. Unfortunately, the past month has been a little slow. June was a slow month for us because first couple of weeks I was really busy helping my folks with some stuff. And now Duralumin has COVID last he spoke to me. So unfortunately, things have been kind of rough in terms of getting stuff done with this. But I'm very proud of how things are coming along so far. We're actually, it's funny, you mentioned the 3DO earlier. I'm currently looking to see if it might be possible to potentially port our work over to that version. So we'll see.
At that community, we're really happy about that.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it depends on what. So is it done in C on the Saturn? Like, I imagine a game like this wouldn't use like the Sega graphics libraries a lot, right? Or it wouldn't use a lot of assembly.
The way this was done is, I honestly have no assembly experience or knowledge. what I got, the reason I chose this game in particular was because it was mostly just the video and graphics that needed to be altered. Everything is done with graphics or video clips, which made it super easy to just, as written in the article, you want to read a little further.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I'm very familiar. In fact, quite similar to Shadow Mask and K, A Murder of Crows, they did Death Mask. And it was kind of the same thing where they ripped, audio video out of the PC version and then were able to mux it in or stick it in here and then, clean things up here and there and translate some menus and stuff like that. But they did an amazing job. And I was one of the biggest, proponents of that, like cheering them on all about that game. It was incredible. The one mistake that I made with that one is that I played it out so much that by the end I kind of got tired of it, And my plan with Death Mask is to revisit it in a couple years and just kind of play it in the dark and go in blind and do it in one sitting. With this game, I can't tell you how excited I am to play this game. I absolutely love like the old JB Harold games, and I love the Hotel Dusk games, and I just want to come to it fresh. Like when you're done, I'm going to be all about it. I don't want to like play it a bunch in little bits, early on, because then it'll just get too old for me, clicking through all those menus. I just kind of want to experience it. But I mean, definitely if folks feel like, giving the patch a shot as it is right now to see where you've gotten, that's great.
Well,
yeah.
One thing I will say is that we have not touched the save functionality at all. So you could potentially play up to the point where we're at, which we have done. We finished chapter 2, so that basically is everything up to the first disc switch.
Okay.
Where you switch to disc 2, and everything up to that point is pretty much, as far as I can tell, done. And if you don't mind taking a little break and waiting for us to get disc 2 done, it's I think completely playable as far as I'm aware.
Okay, yeah, sure.
What program are you using to modify like on-screen graphics?
Sorry, what'd you say? Oh, could you repeat that?
What program are you using to modify on-screen graphics?
Yes. It's a combination of a program called Crystal Tile, and I'm using GIMP, basically.
Okay, GIMP.
I use Crystal Tile to convert the graphic files into bitmaps, and then I can edit those, and then I can just kind of paste my new work over the old ones. It's actually been really simple.
Yeah, that's how we did a lot of the bulk slash stuff. Was kind of bringing it up in Crystal Tile, pulling it out of there, modifying it in. I just used MS Paint, honestly, and then just pasted it what I did
that
back.
Works.
Or Mompus would paste what I did back into Crystal Tile.
Well, I'm not a font creator, so I just kind of used something that looked decent in a program that I could actually just manipulate text on the graphics fairly easily.
Right.
Oh,
that was kind of the main thing, because I'm not. Drawing text is something that I would probably find a little difficult. So what I've been doing is I use GIMP to put the a lot of times the hardest part was actually the main dialogue menus, because they have this background, and I had to carefully find little bits and pieces to make a blank for the thing.
Right.
And then I could use that as a template to put the text on, for any dialogue choice I wanted. That was in the game. That was the hard part, was getting at the template, because it had that kind of wooden background, and it's to the little menu options.
Well, that's pretty good that you pulled it off then.
Thank you. Yeah,
So-
and I think the part that took the longest was, or at least was the hardest, was there's a computer database portion of the game where you can like look at all your evidence and suspects and stuff and get information on them that may or may not be useful. And that took a long time for Duralumin to translate, but we got it done, and things have been proceeding pretty well since. That was the one part that was a little agonizingly slow.
It's crazy how many platforms this game was released on.
Yeah,
honestly. And then of course,
I can't believe I actually haven't heard of this game.
Is that right?
Yeah, I've actually not heard of it.
Have you heard of any of the JB Harold games?
No,
Nope.
I don't think so.
Have you heard of? Have you ever heard of Hotel Dusk Room 215 on the DS?
No.
No. Okay. Well, yeah. So it's kind of niche. Even on the DS, I would say that it's kind of niche. It ends up in a lot of those what are they, hidden gems lists. I wouldn't really call it a hidden gem. I wouldn't call it a hidden gem on the DS. I think a lot of people know about it. But again, I mean, if you're mostly into the typical Nintendo, Mario Kart and Sonic Rush and that, if you're interested in that kind of stuff, you might miss it because it is an adventure game. Falls under that category of like adventure, but it's
like a point and click kind of game.
Yeah, it's like a point and click 'em up. No, it's like a FMV. There is some like menu poking and stuff like that, but it's mostly like FMV, right, RJ?
Yeah, think more Snatcher than where you actually have like dialogue options. You talk to people about different things. Sometimes you're given an opportunity to investigate a location.
Yeah,
and it's all menu driven, but then you kind of watch how things play out.
There were a lot of games like this that did quite well over in Japan. Like Wanchai Connection was like a launch title for the Saturn, and that was kind of like a cop kind of detective noir kind of thing. It was all in Japanese, of course, so huge language barrier, both spoken and written. But this go ahead.
Sorry, I was just gonna say the reason I discovered this game was because I am a fan of the turbo graphics, and the first game in the JB Harold series, Murder Club, actually got was ported to the TurboGrafx CD and got localized over here, and that was how I discovered it, because I actually this is gonna sound so weird, or maybe just OG, I don't know.
It's okay.
But there's, back in the day, TurboGrafx CD, after the whole thing kind of got discontinued, there's like this liquidation company that like you could just mail order brand new TurboGrafx games for a long time.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I've actually heard of that, yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Wow. Direct, and I got at the very tail end of that existing, I managed to get a bunch of great games, sealed or in like brand new, and that's
crazy.
That's me now, looking at how things have blown up since.
I mean, there are still resellers that have crates of old stuff, that they're just sitting on, and they have listed on Amazon, and it's like when it's out, it's out. They update their stock number every time one is sold, but it's like there's like a Game Express online or whatever, or I forget what they're called. I think it's Game Express online. They're like an Amazon store, and they have a bunch of stuff left over from the 90s, but really? It's hit or miss. Yeah, it's I could share a link later in the chat, but yeah. They have some weird stuff. I've picked up some like brand new sealed Saturn games from them. Of course, nothing's really cheap anymore, but yeah, I actually just picked up a brand new X-Band, Genesis X-Band from them recently. Nice. You could get it cheaper on box. You could just get it cheaper cart only on eBay, but I just grabbed one because they had it, and they have a bunch of new old stock stuff, but it's always crazy when you find a resource like that. You want to get everything you can before you share the info, Right. But that's amazing. So yeah, this highly recommend it, Dan. If you go check out this this patch, at least the first disc. I know you have an ODE.
How's the soundtrack in this game?
Wait.
Does it have like that noir detective music?
It's got a bit of
vibe?
that jazzy sound to it, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Okay,
that's
cool.
how I would characterize it. I would characterize the whole series as being kind of on the noir side, trying to do that kind of like Chicago, gritty Chicago detective kind of thing. So, I mean, just you could check out like the YouTube playthroughs of it, and you'll see what it's all about. But yeah, no, it's crazy just how many platforms it came to, including the Laser Active of all things, you know.
That's, I think, the only official English release of Blue Chicago Blues.
Exactly, was the Laser Active. That's right. That's crazy. We didn't even get the PC version, did we? It was like that was a Japanese thing, right?
I think so, because the only version I could find was, a Japanese version that, even though the cutscenes were in English, which was very lucky for the project's purposes, but it still has like Japanese subtitles, I think. When you play the game, like as it plays the video, like in real time, put up like Japanese subtitles under.
Yes. Yeah, you're right. It is. Even so, this is the PC box for the Japanese. This is the only PC box that exists, and it has like the Japanese subtitles there, or the little Japanese sub script right there. So I think it is just a Japanese exclusive. Somehow it ended up coming to the West for the Laser Active, which was a system that hardly anybody had.
Yeah, it's one that's always fascinated me because it's never been emulated, and it has these games and other weird things I've heard about for it. And the craziest thing I heard was there were actually 2 JB Herald games released for the Laser Active. There was also a remake of one of the earlier ones, Mad Max Requiem. And the weird thing is, I may be misremembering this, but I feel like if you know anything about the Laser Active, there were like these different like packages that you had to play games. You had the TurboGrafx version of the pack, and you had like the Sega pack, and the weird thing was, I feel like one of the JB Herald games came out for the Sega pack, but the other one came out for the TurboGrafx pack, and it's like, what?
Yeah, that's crazy. I don't know. It's a really, everything about the series is pretty niche, and like, there's a cult following of fans. When I did some research into it, which I'm not even familiar with all the titles, but what I found is that there's a very, very small cult following of fans for this series, but hasn't seen
Happy to be of service to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for your hard work, and thank you for making this available to the public. Folks should definitely check it out. Sounds like you can play all the way up through disc 1. You mentioned something about not getting into the save portion, right? Which just means that they can play disc 1, but they can't save it? Or they can't...
What I'm saying is the saves are cross-compatible between versions. We've never touched the save system.
Oh, you've never had to touch the save system. Okay. I see what you mean.
We've changed some graphics to English, but the way it actually saves has never been altered. So if you play up to the point where we're at, you can literally, when the new version comes out, and you can literally patch your new disk images and then just load up the old save.
Sounds good. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again.
Where you left off.
Yeah, and so there is a in the article that Dan wrote up here, there is a resource page where you can download it right there, little green button. Yeah. So check it out, version 0.550, and that'll get you through the first disc. So go check that out. If you have an ODE, or I guess you could even burn it to a CD, Dan. Have you gotten an ODE yet, Dan?
No.
One of these days.
It'll happen eventually.
Yeah, you're going to get one eventually. I know you will. Okay, next up is another Best of Saturn, which means that I don't know why there's 2 Best of Saturns. I guess we just Peter posts a lot of these, but the next one is Mortal Kombat Trilogy.
Because they weren't getting posted on the website for a few weeks.
Oh, okay. Well,
actually, there's another one from Peter that wasn't posted. So I tried to communicate that to you on Discord that we'll post the one about Iron Storm next week. Okay. And then whatever he posts next week, we'll also post next week on the website. Right. So we're doubling up on Best of Saturns on the website for a couple weeks to catch up.
Well, that works. Yeah, so I mean, Best of Saturn is just there to get us talking about games that don't get talked about a lot, or just talking about Saturn games. Mortal Kombat Trilogy, probably the best running Mortal Kombat game, arguably, on the Saturn.
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, Mortal Kombat 3. Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 was pretty good. It definitely much better than Mortal Kombat 2, which had all the loading issues and just, it's hard. It's hard to play through Mortal Kombat 2, even though it's like my favorite Mortal Kombat game. I much prefer it on the SNES. But Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 is pretty good, and then Trilogy, of course, is just it's just got everything. Does anybody want to say anything? Dan, Retro. Either of you guys?
Trilogy is the one that added running.
I think Mortal Kombat 3 had it.
Yeah, Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 had it.
Is that the one? Okay.
Yeah.
This one added the aggressor bar then, right?
Okay, yeah, it added the aggressor bar, and then also had like multiple different
characters.
The boss characters and different outfits, right? You could swap back and forth between like old sprites. I believe you could. Or they were unlockable, I think. But yeah, I mean, it's expensive. That's all I can say is the long box is like really expensive because I guess it didn't get that many print. It was a combination of being really popular and being the best version, and then also just not getting that many prints because it was late in the Saturn's life. And yeah, 97 was kind of like that Hail Mary year for the Saturn. So a lot of titles just got low print runs. But anyway, yeah, so you don't have to buy it to play it, though. I mean, you can definitely burn a disc or get it on your ODE, and I highly recommend it if you're into Mortal Kombat. It's really all I can say.
So I played a lot of Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. The aggressor bar, what exactly does that even do?
I would not be the one to tell you about that because Danthrax, do you know? Or does Anthony know?
No. Let me tell you, the first fighting game I ever played was Mortal Kombat 1 on the Genesis when I was too young to be playing a Mortal Kombat game. And I have not really played a Mortal Kombat since then. Like, I ended up as an adult buying Mortal Kombat for the Genesis, kind of out of nostalgia, but I have not, like, been a series fan or anything, so I can't speak to it.
Honestly, so Captain Hodden is asking, how does it compare to the PS1? I would say that I think they're all pretty competent. Like the PS1 version, I've played it and it plays fine. I don't think this is one of those situations where the Saturn is like noticeably better. It might have better animation. I haven't done it like a side by side, so I really couldn't tell you. But I mean, typically speaking, 2D games like this tend to be great on Saturn, although that is not the case for Mortal Kombat 2 for whatever reason. But yeah, so definitely check it out. We got to move right along because we got more like real news to talk about. But
to answer Dan's question real quick, the
sure.
bar makes you go faster.
It lets you go faster. Oh, and in terms of like the combos, those like crazy combos where
your entire moves is just faster in general. So
I got you.
Okay.
Faster.
So you fill up your aggressor bar, and then you can do like those crazy combos where they're almost impossible to block, I guess.
Yeah, because that bar never showed up in any other Mortal Kombat, I don't think. The aggressor bar was just in this one game, and that was it.
Interesting.
Yeah, just in Trilogy, right? Yeah.
Interesting. That I did not know. Okay, Dan, I want to give you plenty of time to talk about this because you were writing this up for a while. This is all about the state of Saturn emulation on the PS4. So where's it at?
It all starts with our Friendly Neighborhood City Connection Saturn tribute releases. A couple of years ago, they put out, they started doing that with Cotton 2 and Cotton Boomerang and Guardian Force. And when they did that, they kind of seem to have unleashed, they opened a Pandora's box for the PS4 and the Switch. Which we reported on that before, where people were injecting other Saturn games into the emulator that these games used on Switch. Well, apparently I didn't realize this. People started doing that for the PS4 as well.
Right.
Yeah, somebody who had done that on the PS4 for PS1 and PS2 games, where they were taking an emulator, injecting whatever game you want into it, and then converting it into an FPKG file or fake package file, which is what's used to kind of trick a PS4 into running it, even if it's not, you don't have a legitimate license to run it. And so he's like, I wonder if I can do that with the Saturn with these City Connection releases. By the way, Malenko just...
I was going to...
Yeah.
Thank you, Malenko. Tell Pat I paid and to set a new reminder. Okay, well, you might just want to DM him. He's in New York, and or maybe when he... you want me to put a reminder in my phone to remind him when he comes back? We appreciate you, Malenko. Appreciate that $40 donation. Wow. That's his... I think that's his, like, non-Patreon. I think. I got that right. But anyway, where were we? Sorry, that distracted me. So
yeah, that's fine.
Well, that's the point. That's why he does it. He says sorry to interrupt, but he does. I know that's on purpose. Yeah, so this reminds me so much of like the Wii, going all the way back to the Wii Virtual Console, because people were doing it back then. Where they were injecting WADs into, the Virtual Console titles so that you could, essentially have like the entire Neo Geo library or the entire, Genesis library, whatever. And most of the games would run no problem. When it got to like N64, then it was a little bit iffy, because a lot of the N64 games, they had to work really hard just to get them running at all. And so you couldn't just go, injecting any N64 game willy-nilly. But of course, the PS4 has plenty of overhead, so I can't imagine it would be an issue.
Well, and I didn't get into this in the story because I felt like we get too in the weeds. I tried to keep it fairly digestible, but from what I understand, a problem with the SSF port, the port of the SSF emulator that City Connect did for both the Switch and the PS4, is that it doesn't really have a way to handle multi-disc games because they don't need to. The games that they've put out, officially, like COT 2, are not multi-disc games. So you cannot inject a multi-disc game into one of these things. Or if you do, like, you just get disc 1 and that's it. And I think some games, maybe 4 games that require the 4 megabyte expanded RAM, have a hard time with it or don't want to run. So
interesting.
There is like a compatibility list that works with it. It's not the entire library, sadly, but there's a lot of games that will work with it.
And that's just down to the emulator. Like if the emulator got any better, or if they were able to, like, I don't know, figure out how to tweak it. See, because the thing is, if the Polymega can run Saturn games, right, then I'm sure a PS4 could do it. But it really comes down to power-wise. It's not an issue. It's really down to the actual code itself. How efficient, how efficient is the emulator? And again, like you said, these emulators are just trying to run shmups. They're not really trying to run everything.
Yeah, so the video that you were just showing, that is actually from a utility that was developed after the first one I mentioned, and it's kind of streamlines the whole process because the first utility that was made shortly after these City Connection games first came out required you to, like, convert one Saturn game at a time into an FPKG file, which could be kind of monotonous when you have a lot of games. And someone just a couple months ago, which is kind of the impetus for doing this story, just a couple months ago, somebody made a batch script that will just convert as many Saturn games as you want into FPKG files that are all, they all come with their own little SSF emulators. And as you see, they just become launchable games from, like, the UI of the PS4. So they just kind of feel like their own actual self-contained, games. So that seems to have made it even easier to play Saturn on your PS4. Although, as I get to a little later in the story, you do need to jailbreak your PS4. Real quick before I get to that, there is one other option for running Saturn games on your PS4, and that is RetroArch, which RetroArch will run on pretty much anything. It's been ported all over the place.
Right.
And I guess back in 2019, it was ported by a couple of homebrewers named Frangar CJ and Big Boss. That it doesn't seem like they made it public for like a year for whatever reason. But you can pretty much run any core that runs on RetroArch with any other platform on the PS4. So that includes the Mednafen emulator, which is called Beetle in RetroArch, as well as Yabause. So you have those options as well. Kind of the downside of that versus the newer things that just convert each game into their own little FPKG files is that it only runs on a very early firmware version of the PS4, version 5.05. Doesn't run on later ones. And also, it's just kind of an extra step. You have to start up RetroArch, start up the emulator, and then pick a game. And these other options, the game's just sitting there like ready to go. It's its own thing. So it's kind of easier. So all of these are only made possible by running custom firmware, installing custom firmware on your PS4. It seems like everyone in the scene uses custom firmware called Goldhen. And Goldhen allows users to run unsigned code, which is essentially code that's not permitted to run by official means on your PS4. And it also lets you transfer games or whatever other files through the console's USB port onto its hard drive. So that's how you get your games on there. And you can only get the Goldhen firmware on there if you have jailbroken your PS4. Now, I say in the story that describing how to jailbreak your PS4 is beyond the scope of this piece. For legal reasons, but also because this isn't a tutorial. So people can, Google search that to figure it out. But for people who are willing to do it, this is a way to play your Saturn games on your fairly modern console. The PS4 is still getting games, and here you can run Saturn games on it too, unofficially. A caveat to this, though, is that the latest firmware for the PS4 right now is version 10.5, and you cannot jailbreak it. I guess the hackers out there have not figured out a way to do that yet. They probably will eventually, knowing hackers, but for now, you can't. You have to have had the foresight to not be updating your PS4's firmware, or maybe you just haven't turned it on in a couple of years. So if you've got version 9.0 or earlier, then you have there's a way to jailbreak it. If it's been updated past that, then you're out of luck. Because there's no way to roll it back. From the research I did, and I saw some people answering other people's questions. Hey, can I roll this back? And they said no. Nope.
Just wait around another 5 years, and somebody will figure out how to
there is a way to roll back, but you had to have backed up your firmware onto your PS4, like it need to or you kind of save your own PS4's firmware, and then you can there's a very weird way that involves actually taking a solder iron to your PS4 on a particular chip. And then you'll be able to roll it back. Yikes, exactly.
Yeah, it's not for the faint of heart.
No, who's doing that? Nobody.
I mean, who's doing this? Even as it is, I'd be interested to know how many folks actually plan on playing Saturn on the PS4. Maybe.
I don't know, but there are. I linked to some of them. There are multiple websites dedicated to all this stuff where people are running all kinds of other emulators on their PS4s, and if they're set up to run other emulators on it, then they're set up to do a Saturn as well. Nothing's different about it. So. They absolutely could. There's quite a few people out there. I guess it's just kind of this whole scene that, SHIRO is not really looked into before, and I thought it would be good to get on the website and kind of talk about it a little bit.
Cool.
So the Netlink games, they work, right?
Probably not.
Probably not.
I don't think a jailbroken PS4 can access the internet. Because if you did that, then it would probably try to phone home to a Sony server, and that server would say, hey, this ain't right, and then do something bad to your console. So, yeah, I don't think that they can go online anymore. And, of course, you need to go online to really make any use of a NetLink Saturn game.
Mm-hmm.
That and, I don't think Midnaf and Yabause really do... I don't think they really emulate the NetLink adapter, do they?
That's an Anthony question. Yabause, okay, Yabause does, and I know he's gotten it working too.
Okay.
So, yeah, with the emulator, and
I guess with RetroArch's Yabause core, you could, I guess, technically run a NetLink game. But I really don't think, unless there's some kind of super hacky way to do it, I don't think there's a way to actually phone out to anybody.
I'm super distracted right now because I run this show in my garage. There's a little lizard just hanging out over there, and he's just like, "What? What do you want?" I'm just hanging out, and I like threw something over there to like get him to go away, and he's just like, "I ain't moving." It's just. He's sitting like right over there looking at me. It's funny. I'll get him later. But I have the door to my garage wide open because otherwise it would just be sweltering in here as we enter the summer. But there you go. Took you behind the curtain. So anyway, next up we're gonna round up the news with this article on the Saturn core. Another Saturn Mr. Core update. Fun. Very exciting. No, I'm just kidding. It is exciting, but it's how many of these have we done, Dan?
I mean, I do
every time, yeah,
exactly.
Every
time that happens. I mean, okay, so this is the first Saturn Core update in 2.5 months. So It's not like there's just one last week.
No,
because when they were coming out at a fast clip last fall, where it was like there was a new one every week or two.
I'm just giving you a hard time, right?
I mean, hey, you're bringing it up, so I'm just letting everybody know.
So what can folks? Yeah, okay. What's new in this one? Let's just get down to brass tacks. What can folks expect out of this?
So the Patreon page for the developer of the Saturn Core, Sergey, also known as SRG320, he has a little list of the things that have fixed. He says that he did a bunch of things on VDP1, the VDP1 graphics processor. He reworked sprite drawing, added support for pre-clipping, initial support for garage shading. So I guess there wasn't garage shading before in the Saturn Core. It made a few other fixes. A couple of them seem specific to Night Warriors, Darkstalkers Revenge, and Skeleton Warriors, because he's called those out. And then he made a fix on VDP2 that has something to do with the game World Cup Golf, a game I know nothing about, except it must be a golf game. It has golf in the name.
Or trash.
And then there's a fix for the CPU to fix an overflow in the division unit. And then he has in parentheses Daytona USA. So that must fix something about Daytona. I did see someone in the Mr. Discord server mention something about, hey, Daytona looks better. So that must have worked.
Cool.
Yeah. So there was a little extra controversy with this particular core release. It seems that SRG320 had a typo in the way that it boots, where he's got it looking for I'm looking for it. I want to say the right thing here. It is looking for boot.bin.
Okay.
But the Mr. actually uses boot.rom. He uses a file called boot.rom.
Right.
So since this version of the Mr. Core is looking for boot.bin and it's not finding it, it wasn't booting up for anyone. Everybody was all excited this afternoon when this core dropped, and everybody's excitedly loading it up on their Misters to try it out and see what games are working now. And all they're getting are black screens. Just blank nothingness. Yeah, they're like, what am I doing wrong? Is this whole thing broken? Man, everybody's feeling all let down. One person gave everyone some kind of hope because it was working for them. And they're showing like video of games working. Yeah, there's like, what did you do different? Well, apparently what he did was he manually selected the boot file. He like manually loaded up the boot dot ROM, which is a workaround to make it work. You can, when you like load up the core and then you manually select what your ROM file is, your boot file. And as they were, everybody was kind of analyzing this, Andy D in the community discovered that the core was specifically looking for a .bin file instead of a .rom file. And he said it's funny because the error message still pops up that says CD BIOS not found since boot.rom doesn't exist, after he decided to just rename his boot.rom to just be boot.bin to see if that would work, and it did. It made it still boot, but it throws up this error message. He said, so it's definitely a typo. It loads fine, as in the core loads fine, but the error screen still pops up. So that's the fix, is rename your boot.rom to boot.bin. For some people, that still didn't work for some reason, so they just have to do what the first guy did, Adventure Taco was his name, and just manually select the boot file, and then they should be off and running.
Cool.
Yeah, so it seems like there are improvements to Quake. Someone said it has lighting now, which I'll bet probably has to do with garage shading working now. Somebody said the webs in Tempest 2000 are working, so it's much more playable. Another person said Virtua Fighter Remix looks and sounds great, full-on music and sound effects. Although I didn't put this in the story, but I guess that game is still crashing after the third round. It always has in other cores, so hopefully that's fixed eventually. Another person said that the playing cards in Clockwork Knight, the two Clockwork Knight games, and some parts of the foreground are rendered correctly now. I even found a little bit of video in a couple of tweets from a Japanese owner of the Mister.
Yes.
And he tweeted out through machine translation. I was reading what he was saying. And he said that the attacks from your Dragoon now have color, while they didn't before in Panzer Dragoon Zwei. And although the ground rendered by VDP2 is kind of flickering occasionally, so there's still a little glitchy there. Yeah. And Afterburner on the Saturn, he said, looks great. Also, there was a new core for the Sega 32X, since it uses the same some of the same processors as the Saturn. And I guess Afterburner on that system's working pretty well too, as reported by this Japanese player. So that's good.
Cool.
Yeah.
So
that's pretty much it.
Also, Video Esoterica just uploaded a video of playthrough on Virtual High. I think it was 25,000 subscribers or something. And it was a playthrough or a video play of Virtual Highlight on the Mister Core, and so it looked pretty good, actually.
It was the old Mister.
It was the old Mister Core. Okay, it still looked good. It still looked pretty. It looked pretty much like what Virtual Highlight looks like. Take it or leave it, for what it is.
There's a running joke in the Mister server that whenever Video Game Esoterica uploads a new Saturn Core video, it causes SRG320 to put out a new update right after, making his video immediately out of date. And that held true again today, because the highlight video went up early this morning, and then early afternoon we get a new core update, and that caused him to scramble to get a new video together, which I guess he is going to have up tomorrow morning, so look out for that.
Cool. Excellent. Yes. All right. Well, thank you, Dan, for making up for the last 2 weeks. Seriously, though, you didn't need to, but I really appreciate all of the content. And thanks, RJack, for joining us. And thanks for your patch, JB Harold Blues Chicago Blues. Folks, go check it out. Thank you, Dan Retrospectors, for joining me last minute and sitting in with me.
No problem.
Always nice to have you, on a stream or in the show or in the chat. We appreciate you. And you and I are supposed to have a tournament here soon. I think we ended up on the what is it, the wild card team, wild card bracket, and I think Dan and I are supposed to go head to head on virtual, not Sega Rally Championship. That's what it is.
Yeah,
Sega
we
Rally
gotta play this weekend.
Yeah, we got to play this weekend, and we'll see. May the best man win. I think at this point, like I don't have time to practice or anything like that, so I'm just basically going on, whatever. Shadow is like losers bracket. Yeah, I did. I lost to Shadow. It was a terrible match, a terrible connection, but I lost to him nonetheless. And conceded right away. I'm just like, yeah, I don't have time to do this again. So, but yeah,
I saw that. You guys were like super laggy. It was like
still,
consistently laggy the whole time.
It was still neck and neck. It was still neck and neck. And I kind of feel like, hey, if it's laggy for both of us and we're both neck and neck, then, it kind of counts. And I know Shadow also recently beat Double Dime as well. So huge congrats onto that. Because Double Dime is no slouch at this stuff. He is the organizer of the event. And so yeah, shouts to Shadow Mask for doing that. Oh, and speaking of Shadow Mask, if you guys are interested in movie night, Shadow, go ahead and plug a link to whatever VHS you're going to be streaming tonight. Every Friday night, Shadow does a movie night stream. So check that out. And check out Retrospector's channel. You haven't uploaded anything in a month, you said, but you still got a ton of great, online Netlink related content. One of which is a video showing people how to register laps on Sega Touring Car, which I still haven't done and I need to do. So
you got to do that because
I need to do that. Yeah,
you actually love that game.
I do love
likes
that.
It, so.
I do love that game. In a kind of like it's bad but it's good kind of way. Like I do ironically love it a little bit, but there are parts about it I like. Yeah, so it's a dark.
I really didn't like that game at first, and then I just kept playing it and playing it and playing it, and I started to really like it.
You just punished yourself until you're what is that? What is that? The Stockholm syndrome, basically.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, so what is the movie tonight? Oh, Raiders of the Lost Ark at 9 p.m. Link in Discord. Awesome. So check out Raiders of the Lost Ark with Shadow Mask tonight on VHS. Good old 4x3. Or is it letterboxed? Is it gonna be letterboxed or was it 4x3? I can't remember. It's VHS. Thanks to Dan for all the great articles.
My pleasure.
Yep, absolutely. Love you. And then everybody else, I'm going to read off our patrons. We really appreciate all of our patrons, whether you donate $1, $3. We have different tiers for which you can access content. There is a little inner circle deal, kind of like a private chat in our Discord group. And it really doesn't matter. Honestly, any kind of donation means a lot to us and helps us with our web hosting and several other things. Honestly, it helps us make the magazine. It helps us with everything. So if you want to give anything, we're great. We're definitely appreciative. But if you can't afford to, support us financially, no biggie. Just, like the streams and share them out. And that helps a lot. And then just join the Discord and be a part of the community because it means a lot to us. To see the community grow and to see Saturn get more love. But I am going to read off the $10 and up patrons. We've got Daniel Fredrickson, shouts, Theron Brown, David Zaney, who's here in the chat with us in the YouTube chat. Shouts David, Sega Steve. We got Chris 1997 XX, or is that like straight edge? I don't know. Chris 1997 XX. We got Stone Man, Justin, Nate Lawrence, A Murder of Crows, Gem Clash or Rank, Cerulean, Normal Guy, Robert Ramsey, Nutrageous, Blue Moon 95, happy birthday Blue Moon, just celebrated his birthday, Tanuki Trev, Johannes Fetz, Rowan Dinkt, That Drunk Friend Utaku, got Derek Pasquarelli A-Team, who's chilling with TraynoCo in New York right now. Shouts to you, bro. I got to get him on soon for like a Dreamcast talk. We got Mamdu, Memphis. We got Emerald Nova, and then Young Money Swee. Every single one of you are amazing. Thank you so much for your support. Don't know if we deserve it, but we definitely appreciate it. Sorry. And I just clipped my mic. Until next time, this is SaturnDave and Dan Retrospectors. We got Dan Thrax and Night of Dragon and Arjack in the chat, reminding you that you must play your Sega Saturn. And until next time, peace.
Sega Saturn, SHIRO!
Nice.
セガサターンしろ